Primal Chaos. Hello. Hey everybody, Primal Chaos here. Ever since I did voice play the other day, I've just been running around practicing singing low notes because Jeff Castellucci's insane. And and I've been driving everyone crazy on what's going on. Okay, today I'm doing Sleep Token and the summoning. I have no idea who Sleep Token are. I've got no experience with these guys at all. So this is completely fresh eyes. I did Google them, and it seems like they're a London band formed in 2016, and they're one of those acts that hides behind masks. They're anonymous. I mean, maybe that's come out now. I don't know, but according to the 10-second Google research that I did for this, they're anonymous. So that's interesting. That's always cool. I mean, it's the same sort of thing. You know, it started with bands like Kiss, and of course, Slipknot, where, you know, part of the charm is that there's anonymity there. They're just faceless characters, you know, and I kind of dig that. That's really interesting. I'm assuming this is going to be fairly heavy, although I don't know in what direction. You know, that heavy can mean a lot of different things. And when you're going in blind, particularly when this track, the reason I'm doing it is because I've seen so many other people react to it, an unusual amount, which to me means that there's something about this that's different or interesting, or it's an interesting evolution in the band's catalog, or something that's inspiring people to want reactors to react to it, because reactors will react to it if a lot of other people do as well. And again, I do that not because of, you know, following the zeitgeist, but if everybody is reacting to it, there must be something interesting about it. And I'm here for the interesting, you know, so that's why I'm checking this out today. Just before we jump in, I just want to say this video today is brought to you in part by Enchroma Glasses. I've actually got mine right here. Enchroma make glasses for colorblind people like myself that have lenses that allow you to see the world closer to how it should be seen. They've definitely changed the way that I interpret color in the world, so I'm forever grateful to Enchroma, which is why I always use them as a sponsor. If you're anyone you know is colorblind, definitely click the link in the description, check them out. There's a 60-day money-back guarantee, all that sort of good stuff. Also check out my website. At the moment I'm featuring this t-shirt, which I designed, called Drag Down. I designed it when I was going through like terrible sleep problems and stuff like that, and I was getting a sleep study done. Everything on the site is designed by me, and it's a great way to support the channel. All right, let's jump straight in. This is Sleep Tokens, The Summoning. Here we go. Good Lord. Interesting. All right, wow. Okay, before we jump too far into it, this is one of those things where rhythmically I definitely feel like I'm out of my depth. You know, I really struggle to try and count along to things like this. But I mean, fundamentally at its core, there's definitely a pulse there. You can sort of, same as with Tool, if you know where the 1 and the 2 are, like 1 and 2 and 3, you can pop along to anything. You'll just be off the beat or on the beat depending on where they stop the bar, right? But what's interesting, what I can't get my head around with stuff like this is how they arrange it. Like, if you were to write this drum chart, I feel like every bar would be a different measure, a different time signature. But they make it work, right? Like, I think it's because that pulse is definitely there. You can, you know, from just like from a tribal aspect of just feeling that basic drum rhythm, it's there, right? And it's about a heartbeat sort of pace or a slow walking pace. And you can sort of groove to it. And then all of the chaos that's going on around it is ephemeral. It's brilliantly played and everything like that. And it pulls you in different directions with tension. You know, when a bar goes on too long, it creates tension until it resolves and things. And I noticed, like, I mean, I got no idea what the count is anywhere, but it sounded to me like there was a drum fill on the 1. You know what I mean? It wasn't leading into the next bar. It was at the start of the bar and things. It's just really topsy-turvy. And I like it. I'm here for it. Interesting vocal too. Like, it's relatively clean and melodic. So this is right up my alley. This is something I could definitely get into. I'm going to jump right back because I want to check this out again. See if I can get a read on it. What is going on? Wow, cool. I think what's interesting about it, and again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, because like I said, rhythm isn't really my thing. But what's interesting is it seems like the majority of the vocal is still resting squarely in a 4/4 groove, and everything's moving sort of janky around it. So you can latch onto the vocal and you can sort of feel like you're listening to something that's more traditional. But in the meantime, you've got all this stuff moving around sort of on and off the rhythm sort of in the background, which is, that's something that's a really cool idea. I've actually thought of that in some production I've done before, where if you've got a singer that sings relatively straight, if they don't have a lot of groove and if they sing fairly on the beat, you can write music around them that has groove. And then it sounds like the singer's doing something infinitely more interesting because their straightness is working against the off-kilter groove in the background. And it makes the singer sound like they're doing an amazing job, but really you're juxtaposing their simplicity over something more complex, and it works. And that's kind of what I think's going on here. It's a great way for, I guess more sort of entry-level listeners to have something to attach themselves to when everything rhythmically is so complex. That's genius. As far as sound goes, and again, this isn't really my area of expertise, but I'm feeling with a lot of the dun 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 sort of thing, getting a Gojira sort of a vibe. I've only heard Gojira a couple of times, and there's probably better examples, but to my ears, that's kind of what's jumping out. And sonically, some of the guitar and bass sort of rhythms are reminding me a little bit of Spirit Box as well. They have that sort of flavor to their sound in the low end that's sort of similar. And I guess it's really just that at its core, it's just a detuned sort of sound aesthetic, I guess. Yeah, let's just jump back a little bit. Great mix, by the way. Cool. Oh, that's tight. Now I'm getting a Porcupine Tree vibe, like heavier, but like I'm thinking like Bonnie, is it Bonnie the Cat or something that's got like a whispered part in it like that? Whatever, dude. I mean, it's squarely in the prog metal sort of genre. And I want to go back a little bit because it was interesting. They go to these big fry screams like that, really sort of saturated, like "Row" kind of fry, but they've pulled it right back in the mix, so it's almost like someone screaming from way back there. It's really cool. God, that's chunky. So I mean, like, rather than being right up here in the mic. Okay. Oh, that was really nice. Wow. Wow, that's cool. So, yeah, wow, did you hear that vocal in there? That was crazy. I love that it's kind of like the clean vocal through this part. Again, it's pulled so far back in the mix. It's almost like a textural element, right? Like really the focus is on the really driven guitars. And then right in the back with tons of reverb on it, the reverb is almost as loud as the main vocal. You've got this beautiful melody going through. It's such a cool mix. It's like a little bit like when you listen to Tool, Maynard's voice is mixed in such a way that it's not any more important a lot of the time than the rest of the instrumentation. Like with pop production, you want the vocal front and center, hugely compressed. It's right in your face and everything else around it. Bands like this, it sort of serves them better to have more like a sonic canvas where everything has its place and everything's set a little bit back and it's more ambient and ethereal, which kind of falls into the whole concept of a band called Sleep Token, right? Like you immediately get this feel of like dreamy, kind of that warm molasses of just reverb and everything that's sitting underneath the chaos. And you have these segments of the song where they really get they're not even hugely saturated guitars. They've still got a lot of crunch and edge in them, just pumping straight into the speakers. But then they'll fall back into like these sort of more of like a sonic tapestry that breathes. It's very organic. Very cool. Hang on. Let's see. And the solo is really nice too. Piano in there too, right? Yeah, okay. Come on, what a note. Oh, that's cool. There's some good Jira action. Can I just listen to this, man? So we go from this super melodic, lush soundscape into something that's really punchy rhythmically and atonal. It's just noise. There's no like key center. It's just... And then from there, we go back to more ambient stuff as well. See what I mean? This is just noise. There's barely any sort of tonality to it. That's cool. Oh, there's vocals too. Is that vocals? Oh, man. There's so many textural layers floating around, so good. Oh, that's cool.
Or maybe just to turn me on. 'Cause these days
Sounds like a different singer altogether.
I would be lying if I told you that I didn't wish that I could be your man.
Is this like got some Pink Floyd vibes to it now?
Maybe make a good girl bad. I've got a river running right into you. I've got a blood trail red in the blue. Something you say or something you do. The taste of the divine. You've got my body flesh and bone. The sky above, the earth below. Nothing to say and nowhere to go. A taste of the divine.
Come on. I genuinely feel like I just watched like a how would I describe it? It's either like I just heard a whole album full of songs, or I just watched like 5 or 6 bands in a row and I just got a highlight reel, you know? Every single segment of that was completely different. It's so disjointed and quirky and unusual and diverse. It doesn't even sound like the same band. Like I was saying at the end there, that funky sort of like synth bassy kind of thing that was going on. The vocal in that sounded completely different to any of the other vocal parts. Now, I assume there's several singers because I noticed during the high sort of wailing sort of parts, there was more than one voice. I mean, it could be double tracked and whatever, but it just sounded like the character of the nature of how they perform. Maybe there's more than one singer in the band. But man, what a journey, right? Like it's very rare that I mean, with prog, typically rather than, you know, having formulaic verse, chorus, A, B sort of patterns, they tend to like to, and same with metalcore, they tend to like to evolve the song over time rather than into completely different territories, rather than sort of sticking with a, you know, something that repeats. Unless you're repeating like just a theme or something like that, like as a callback. But this is sort of taking that to another level because it almost sounds like every section of the song is a completely different act, you know? I'm really impressed. I got to know more about Sleep Token. Fill me in, like, what are their career highlights? I know this is recent. And to me, this seems like one of those songs that comes along where everybody just accepts this is like a masterpiece from their catalog. But maybe not. Maybe everyone hates this new stuff. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But I'm definitely interested. This is, like I said, I'm not super into stuff that's super rhythmically challenging. Although, you know, I like bands like Dream Theater and you know, all the staple sort of bands that sort of play around with time. And Tool to a degree. What I like about Tool over a lot of other bands that really mess around with rhythm is that they make it seem organic. They don't make it seem like they're making complex rhythmic choices for the sake of proving that they can do it. It always feels organic, and it feels like an analog version of that, right? And that's the same vibe I'm getting with Sleep Token. It didn't ever feel forced. It didn't feel like, hey guys, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at this so that you guys can tell that we're amazing musicians. It felt like everything there served the song, and it felt like it was supposed to be there. And so that's always a joy to me. Anytime that something feels like it was manifested out of the ether as opposed to painstakingly pieced together, always, that's a big turn on for me. I like it to feel effortless, and these guys definitely make this feel effortless, even though it's absolutely not. To say it most simply. Yeah, that was fantastic. Let me know in the comments. Where do I go after this? What's some more Sleep Token? What's something else I should check out? Even something else in the genre. Like obviously Gojira is an angle, but maybe some other bands that maybe aren't at that status level that are sort of similar to this might be interesting to check out as well. So hit me up. Having said that, if you feel like I've brightened your day at all, feel free to support the channel just by buying me a coffee. Or just hit the thanks button, super thanks button on YouTube. That helps as well. Also like, share, follow, subscribe. Really love to get this out to as many people as possible. So if you know someone who might enjoy this reaction, send it to them as well. Man, this channel's been really diverse lately. Doing everything from, crazy Japanese funk to straight vocal acts to adult contemporary classical. And, but really the channel started in this kind of a genre, starting with Parkway Drive and working my way through a lot of the sort of, more extreme vocal sort of acts, with a lot of the and a lot of the yow, and not so much of the do. And so it's nice to sort of get back to something a little bit more edgy, but that's a little bit edgy but different. Sometimes, and I know this is swearing to a lot of people, but a lot of metalcore and deathcore stuff, unless you're completely embedded in the genre or in the fandom, a lot of it can start to sound really samey from the outside, and it's hard to tell bands apart. And everybody's sort of striving to sort of fulfill the tenets of the genre rather than push new boundaries. And so that's why I like to hear bands that are a little bit more, or seem to me anyway, to be a little bit more original in concept, like these guys. They're using elements from the genre, but they're pushing the limits. At the core of any creative process that I do, I'm like, how can I make this more unique, more original, and less like everyone else? While, still using the same building blocks as everyone else. That's the challenge. So yeah, these guys are fantastic. Thanks everyone for the recommendations, and keep them coming. Stay primal. I'll catch you in the next one.